Good morning. I note that the hour has come and a quorum is present here at City Council. All right, Council will come to orders. Member, would you please take your seats? Visitors, would you retire to the seats outside the rails before the proceeding? And I would ask that all those present, please set your cell phones on silent or on vibrate. Thank you so much. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Father Caracas of St. Thomas Indian Orthodox Church. He's here today as the guest of Councilman Taubenberger, and I would ask all members and guests to please rise.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I take this as an honor to be invited to be in this session of the City Council. Congratulate all members who are working hard for the city. All that we do is our prayer for all of you every day, particularly on Sunday worship. Being Orthodox priest, I have very special dress, which you have seen now. I make sure that I don't wear this at Halloween time because people may get confused. But as a new day has begun, let us pray. Lord our God, glory and praise and adoration are due to you. O Heavenly Parent, we acknowledge your loving presence in our midst as we are gathered here as a City Council and those who are responsible to shoulder the various tasks to make this a functional and friendly city. As your children, we acknowledge your unconditional love for us, regardless who we are, regardless of our weaknesses or strength, regardless of our background, our color, status, education, religion, faith, or gender. We acknowledge also, dear God, that we sometimes did not emulate your unconditional love in our lives. We have been enjoying your free gift of the nature and its endless resources. We were not very responsible in sharing the resources that you gave us. Sometimes we even fought each other without conscience to claim our own spoils. We were sometimes ruthless with the nature and failed in maintaining its beauty and purity. We were sometimes lazy, and most of the time we lost the opportunities that came in front of us. Sometimes we did not use our talents in the right way for the edification of our community. For all those, we ask for your pardon. Now, dear Lord, we as your children are privileged to bring our supplications to you. We pray for our city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, and has been under your care always. This premier city that witnessed the American freedom, the city that has upheld diversity and harmony, the city that welcomed people of all cultures is our abode. Today, when we are in session, we ask for your special blessings on the entire city, our mayor, Jim Kenney, the city council's president and members of the entire police and fire forces, whose life is always set on edge for our sake, entire workers in the city hall, its auxiliaries, various departments that make the city run smoothly and efficiently. The health, education, travel, construction, law, social services, religious services, recreation efforts, political system, and the myriads of operation controlled by this administration. May we be united in fighting life issues than people. May we be enriched to help each other instead of exploiting each other. May we be inspired to be law-abiding citizens and not to bring corruption into the system. May we be selfless in carrying out our duties to each resident in the city without partiality. May we be committed to practice our name Philadelphia, exhibiting brotherly love and sisterly affection. Dear God, instill in us the true wisdom to see everyone as a child of God and as our own kith and kin. Give us the insight that we are here to serve and not to be served. Help us, Lord, to understand good and evil clearly. Help us to be instruments of social justice, fairness, removing all violence, deceit, falsehood, arrogance, anger, vengeance, and hatred. Bring peace and amity and harmony in all communities, that we will enjoy tranquility and peace. Help us to fulfill to be as useful tools to eradicate poverty from our city and make this city prosper day by day. May the people in this city be able to acquire the highest sense of dedication to hard work, to pay the taxes on time, abide with the law of the land, keep it clean, beautiful, and be accountable in all their day-to-day activities. And we bring you glory, the Heavenly Parent, now and always, forever and ever. Amen.
The chair thanks the Father for his invocation. Council now obeys.
The next thing is a leave of absence where, who do you want to do it? Blondie?
Yeah,
Who's the next one?
I got.
Blondie? Just so you know. You might want to mark one there at Blondell.
Okay. Yep. The next order of business. The next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting Thursday, March 3rd, 2016. The chairman recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 3rd, 2016 be approved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 3rd, 2016 stand approved. All those in favor will indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The journal is now approved. The next order of business will be the request for leaves of absence. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown.
Good morning. On behalf of the majority, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you. On behalf of the Republicans, there are no requests for leave of absence.
Chair thanks the gentleman. No leaves will be granted. Chair will now dispense with the regular order of business. All right, to recognize a guest and all the visitors that are here to join us today in the chamber. So good morning to you all. On behalf of all members of this City Council, we welcome you, and we welcome you to our council session. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us as to attend to the legislative affairs of our city, and we certainly invite you to come back and join us soon. At this time, the chair would recognize myself, who has a presentation, presenting a resolution honoring Paul Doris as the Grand Marshal of the 246th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. With Paul Doris and those accompanying him, please join the council members at the podium, please, which is right here in front of us. What's this? So the chair is going to recognize Councilman Johnson, Councilman O'Neill, and Councilman Clark, and Councilwoman Kim for the presentation.
Clark. All right, he did all that. This is what we're doing. You're Clark.
Dancers. Yeah. Dancers.
If you just stand by for a moment, we have an additional treat.
Thank you, girls. I want to thank a few people before we start the presentation. I want to thank Joe Tobin, the bagpipers, and Olivia Hipple and the rink dancers. All right, they did a wonderful job. Thanks. The 1960 committee, want to thank them for being here. The parade committee, which is behind me, I happen to be a proud member of the St. Patrick's Observance Day Committee, who was present by our president, Chris Phillips, and the parade committee chairman, Mike Bradley. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank Olivia Hipple and, again, Joe Tobin for their presentation here today. With that, all right, honoring Paul Doris as the Grand Marshal of the 246th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. All right, whereas Paul Doris was born and raised in Collisland County, Tyrone, where he first experienced religious discrimination and injustice. The political upheaval in Northern Ireland also has had a profound impact in his life. Paul turned to Gaelic football as an escape to the troubles in his homeland. And
whereas Paul endured the anguish of several family tragedies over the course of the next few years, so when offered the opportunity to play Gaelic football in Philadelphia in 1974, Paul jumped at the chance and immigrated to the United States. And whereas 2 short years later, Paul met and married the love of his life, Rosemary. Together, they have 2 children, Deirdre and Brendan, and 5 grandchildren. And whereas Paul was an active member of Teamsters Local 115 for 32 years, rising through the ranks and becoming shop steward until his retirement in 2011, and
whereas Paul's love of Gaelic football has never waned. Paul is a founding member of the Shamrocks football team and has been an active member in the GAA since he arrived in Philadelphia. He also owns the distinction of being the only referee from Philadelphia to officiate the North American Football Final, and whereas Paul also played a prominent role in the establishment and progressive agenda of the Freedom of Irish Societies in an effort to ensure the Irish community in Philadelphia was united in their opposition to the British injustice in Ireland. And whereas
as a member of Irish Northern Aid, Paul is still active in marches, protests, and fundraising for this cause, and has served as the national president of INA. Paul has been honored in both the United States and Ireland for his years of service in the pursuit of Irish freedom. Whereas, in addition to recognizing Paul's distinction of serving as Grand Marshal of this parade, the Ring of Honor this year will also include Matt Reagan, Kevin McGillian, Siobhan Traynor, James McPaul, Eileen Daly, Pierce Kerr, Jerry McHale, Francis Duffy, and Pat Bonner. And
the 2016 St. Patrick's Day Parade will recognize the sacrifice of those who took part in one of Ireland's most historic events. The 1916 Easter Uprising. The Irish diaspora in Philadelphia provided political, moral, and financial support for the uprising, so it is fitting that in the very city that our own Declaration of Independence was signed, the St. Patrick's Day Observance Association pays homage to those who declared Ireland's independence from British rule on Easter, Monday, April 24th, 1916, and now therefore.
I had to put the sash over the right shoulder. All right, excuse me. Therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Philadelphia that we hereby honor and congratulate Paul Doris as the Grand Marshal of the 246th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. Resolve further that an engrossed copy of this resolution be presented to Paul Doris, further evidencing the graceful and appreciation, deep admiration of this legislative body. So I want to thank him, everybody here who's joining us, and a little point of personal privilege. Before we bring up our Grand Marshal for remarks, one of our other members that are up here to join, we all know John McNesby. It's his birthday today. Happy 50th birthday, Mr. McNesby.
duties.
The chair warmly recognizes Mr. Paul Doris for remarks.
First of all, I'd like to thank Council President Clark and Council Member Heenan for offering this resolution. I'm not going to say too much. I don't have a prayer or anything. I think we got that, so I'll try and keep this short. This year, as I said, is a very, very important year in the history of Ireland. We have had a long, troubled past, but in 1916, men and women took up arms against the British, which our ancestors here did in the 1700s, because with the simple goal of ruling their own country. We don't need any interference from anybody else to rule our country. So they knew that it was almost a failed cause. But they said before they died, 15 of them were executed within a week. They said before they died, at least their sacrifice will awake the nation of Ireland, which it did. And a few years after that, we won independence for 26 of the 32 counties. We still have 6 to get. England has plundered the world over. The only little colony left is Northern Ireland. It's not even the size of Pennsylvania. And it's not much for us to ask, for us to work for, is that little bit united along with the rest of Ireland to make one Ireland whole and proud again. So I'll just leave it at that. I just want to thank the Parade Committee for acknowledging 1916 this year, the 100th anniversary. And I'd like to remind people that on April the 24th, over here at Independence Hall, we're having a celebration on the actual date that it happened, which is April 24th, 1916. I'd like to thank my wife, my family, and all the people that's here today. And once again, the City Council, you have been great to us down through the years, and I hope it continues. Thank you very much.
Council will be at ease.
At this time, the chair recognizes Councilman Green, who will present a resolution recognizing the outstanding contributions of Jillian Abell, and would Peter Cook and those accompanying him please join the councilman at the podium. What's this? Yeah. Joining the councilman is Councilwoman Parker, Councilman Kenyatta Johnson. And while everybody's approaching, the chair would also like to recognize State Representative Michael Driscoll, who joined us here today. Thank you for joining us, Representative. Okay.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to recognize an outstanding leader in the history of the city of Philadelphia. This morning we're doing a resolution recognizing and honoring the outstanding contributions and achievements of Julian Abel, an accomplished architect and Philadelphia resident. Whereas Julian Francis Abel, the first African-American graduate of the University of Pennsylvania's architecture program, received scant recognition during his lifetime, despite his significant and many professional contributions. And whereas, although Fisk Kimball, noted architectural historian and director of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, acknowledged that Abel was one of the most sensitive designers anywhere in America in 1942, Abel remained virtually unknown outside of Philadelphia's architectural community until the 70s and 80s. And whereas, born in Philadelphia in 1881, Abel lived most of his life in the city, residing at 1515 Christian Street for several decades of his adult life. And
whereas, an accomplished student, Abel graduated from the Philadelphia Museum and School of Industrial Art in 1898 and entered into the prestigious architecture program at the University of Pennsylvania that very same year, where he won several impressive awards and served as the president of the university's Architectural Society during his senior year. And whereas, after graduating from Penn in 1902, Abel, augmented his education by studying architectural design at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, while working evenings for the noted Philadelphia architect Louis C. Hickman. Whereas Abel spent the next 5 years studying design in Paris and was influenced by the 18th century French architecture throughout his career. And whereas in 1907, Abel returned to Philadelphia and joined the firm of Horace Trombauer, a popular architectural design house that was responsible for many mansions in Philadelphia, New York, and Newport, Rhode Island, as well as apartment houses and office school buildings, theaters, hospitals, clubhouses, churches, libraries, and museums.
Whereas, one of Abel's largest projects was the firm's commission to design and supervise the construction of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And whereas in 1909, he ascended to the firm's top position, chief designer, a remarkable accomplishment in light of his young age and race, and he continued to be the top designer of the Trombauer firm until his death in 1950. And whereas he designed the Duke University Chapel, as well as many other buildings on the campus. And whereas in 1942, Abel was elected to the American Institute of Architects. And
whereas in his private life, Abel was a quiet, serious man, yet brilliant and witty, who appreciated all things French, enjoying fine wine, classical music, and opera, and who engaged in watercolor painting, sketching, and jewelry and furniture making. And whereas he married Marguerite Bull, a French woman, and had 2 children, a son and a daughter, but after several years the couple parted, although they never divorced. And whereas today we appreciate Abel as one of the early 20th century's most adept designers of revival buildings, who rejuvenated many long dormant styles as vital, modern forms of architectural expression and changed the skyline of Philadelphia and much of the United States. Now therefore be it
resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia that Council does hereby recognize and honor the outstanding contributions and achievements of Julian Abel, an accomplished architect and Philadelphia resident. This resolution is signed by all members of City Council and supported by this body. I had the opportunity to do a tour of the Art Museum with both Gail Harrity and Nicole White and learned that his great nephew, Peter Cook, would be in Philadelphia today. And that was the impetus of doing this resolution. We also know we just went through Black History Month, but as you all know, Black history is 365 days, and Mr. Abel was recognized in the General Assembly but had not been recognized here in the city of Philadelphia. So at this time, we wanted to make sure we did this acknowledgement to Mr. Julian Abel for all the work he has done on behalf of the city of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Mr. Cook for remarks.
On behalf of the Abel family, on behalf of the Cook family, let me say thank you very much to everybody here for taking the time to bestow this honor on Julian Abel. I, too, am an architect, and I know it's one of the great aspirations of so many architects to leave a lasting contribution on the environment. And I'll simply say that Julian Abel clearly did that, and he did that extraordinarily well and with grace. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Council will be at ease.
Thank you. The next order of business is communications. The chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages from the mayor to the chief clerk. Mr. Decker, please read those messages.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am pleased to advise you that on March 8, 2016, I signed the remaining bills which were passed by Council at a session on February 25, 2016. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution authorizing the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Haddington urban renewal area, unit numbers 2 and 3, identified by house number and street address as 5852 Race Street, and a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Haddington Urban Renewal Area, Unit Numbers 2 and 3, identified by house number and street address as 5146 Wyalusing Avenue, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to dispose of certain properties located in the 5th Councilmanic District that will be transferred by the city to the authority by conveyance of such properties to the Philadelphia Land Bank in accordance with terms of Chapter 16700 of the Philadelphia Code, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. You have any additional communications?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The next order of business is introduction of bills and resolutions, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning.
I have one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A privileged resolution authorizing the Committee on the Environment to conduct public hearings to investigate the relationship between poor indoor environmental quality and high incidences of childhood asthma.
And that will be on this week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I introduce one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Haddington Urban Renewal Area at Unit Numbers 2 and 3, identified by house number and street address as 5146 Wyalusing Avenue.
And that'll be on next week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf, I offer one bill and one resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Hamilton Street, 15th Street, Keller Hill Street, and 16th Street.
That bill will be referred to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to dispose of certain properties located in the 5th Councilmanic District that will be transferred by the city to the authority by conveyance of such properties to the Philadelphia Land Bank.
And that'll be on next week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'll offer one bill on your behalf.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Title 17 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Contracts and Procurement by adding language to bar the city from contracting with companies that use tax inversion and earnings stripping strategies to avoid paying taxes to the United States of America.
That bill will be referred to committee. Resolution. That's it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, I have one bill and one resolution on your behalf.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution calling for the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings on improvements to the Philadelphia Police Department video surveillance systems and programs and other crime prevention tools, such as the ShotSpotter gunfire detection system.
Thank you. That will be on today's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Haddington Urban Renewal Area, Unit Numbers 2 and 3, identified by house number and street address as 5852 Ray Street.
And that will be on next week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Council President, I have nothing today.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Cunin Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I have one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fees, simple title to city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the 7th and 23rd wards of the city of Philadelphia.
That'll be on next week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I have three privileged resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution honoring the Philadelphia Gas Works on the occasion of its 180th anniversary.
That will be on this week's final passage calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development to hold hearings regarding the Abandoned and Blighted Property Conservatorship Act of Pennsylvania.
This week's final passage calendar.
And a privileged resolution authorizing the Committee on the Environment to hold hearings to examine the Solar Schools for Philadelphia report released by Penn Environment Research and Policy Center and Frontier Group, and to investigate financing options for the School District of Philadelphia and to use its land and building stock for solar energy generation.
And that'll be on this week's final passes calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Good morning, Council President. Today I have one privileged resolution and two bills, one co-sponsored by Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Finance, Taxes, and Collections by amending Chapter 19-1300 entitled Real Estate Taxes to impose additional requirements on tax abatements.
That bill will be referred to committee.
And an ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Finance, Taxes, and Collections by amending Chapter 19-1300 entitled Real Estate Taxes to modify the terms of some abatements.
Referred to committee.
And a privileged resolution acknowledging and recognizing Startup PHL presents Amplify Philly SXSW Edition, a partnership of 30 public and private organizations that have joined together to highlight Philadelphia's startup and tech community and promote Philadelphia as a hub for startups at the South by Southwest Conference and Festival taking place March 11th through March 20th in Austin, Texas.
Thank you. That will be on today's final passes calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilman Don.
I'd like to request the opportunity to speak on the resolution before it's voted on.
We'll do it at the time. Preferred. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
No bills or resolutions this morning, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Councilman, good morning, and colleagues as well. I have one privileged resolution by myself and also Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution recognizing and honoring March 10th as Harriet Tubman Day in the city of Philadelphia.
And that will be on today's final passes calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority, without consideration, deeds conveying conditional fees, simple title to city-owned lots or pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the 25th, 31st, and 39th wards of the city of Philadelphia.
And that'll be on next week's final passes calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
A privileged resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Commerce and Economic Development to investigate and hold hearings to determine whether the City of Philadelphia should develop a local mentor-protege program to enhance the capacity of minority, women, or disabled-owned enterprises to compete for procurement opportunities in the Philadelphia metropolitan marketplace.
Thank you, and that'll be on this week's final passes calendar. And the chair now recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer one privileged resolution co-sponsored by Council members Derek Green, Mark Squilla, Blondell Reynolds Brown, Sidney Bass, and Kenyatta Johnson, and one bill, and may be heard on the bill briefly after it is read.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Title 4 of the Philadelphia Code entitled the Philadelphia Building Construction and Occupancy Code, Subcode PM, the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code, Chapter 3, General Requirements, to require inspections of certain bridges, to impose reporting, remediation, and other requirements in connection therewith, all under certain terms and conditions.
And that bill will be referred to the appropriate committee, and the chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last year, I introduced a bill regarding orphan bridges and roads, particularly those that are not being inspected and not being maintained in our city. I worked with, at the time, Streets Commissioner David Perry. And now he is the Commissioner of L&I, and I'd like to credit him with the work that was done in that bill. So although I've introduced it, I'd like to say that he did most of the work there. And as L&I Commissioner, I believe he's come up with a very good solution to the problem of these deteriorating and uninspected bridges, skywalks, and other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
And a privilege resolution recognizing and honoring the Philadelphia Clef Club of Jazz and Performing Arts for serving and representing Philadelphia as a legendary institution of jazz performance and education on the occasion of its 50th anniversary.
And that'll be on this week's final passage calendar. And that concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions. We will now have our reports from committee, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell for a report from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Finance reports 2 bills out with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Decker, please read that report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Finance, to which is referred Bill Number 160004, entitled An Ordinance Amending Subsection 192604, Subparagraph 8 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Green Roofs Tax Credit, to amend definitions and make other technical changes. And Bill Number 160012, entitled An Ordinance Amending Chapter 193900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Tax Exemptions for Long-Time Owner Occupants of Residential Properties, by extending the time for which such exemptions are available. Respectfully reports it as considered and amended the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
And the chair again recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 160004 and 160012.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill number 160004 and 160012. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and that bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Keona Sanchez for a report from the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Appropriations reports 4 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read our report.
The Committee on Appropriations, to which is referred Bill Number 160134, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing Transfers and Appropriations for Fiscal Year 2016 from the General Fund, the Department of Revenue, the Board of Trustees of the Free Library of Philadelphia, the Commission on Human Relations, the Auditing Department, and the Grants Revenue Fund, the Director of Finance Provision for Other Grants, to the General Fund. And Bill Number 160136, entitled An Ordinance Amending Bill Number 150163, approved June 18, 2015, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt the Fiscal 2016 Capital Budget by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources. And Bill Number 150162, entitled approved June 18, 2015, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt the Capital Program for the 6 fiscal years 2016 through 2021 inclusive, as amended by Bill Number 150611, approved October 20, 2015, as amended by Bill Number 150790, approved December 1, 2015, by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources. And Bill Number 160150, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing Transfers and Appropriations for Fiscal Year 2016 within the General Fund relating to the Council. Respectfully reports it as considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. The chair again recognizes Councilwoman Keona Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of bills number 160134, 160136, 160137, and 160150.
Thank you. It is moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 160134, 160136, 160137, and 160150. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. And those bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. The next order of business is the consideration of the calendar. I note that the bills just reported from committee have been deemed to have had a first reading. These bills will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on the first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions on the final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up for second reading and final passage calendars today. Bill number 160179, 160181, 160183. All other bills and resolutions are being held.
Thank you, Councilman. Before considering these bills and resolutions on the final passage calendar, we will have our public comment session. Our public comment session will go as follows. If you are interested in testifying on a bill or resolution that is on the final passage calendar today, if you have not already done so, I'd ask that you sign up at the table to my left. When your name is called, you will go to the podium in the middle of the council chambers. There's a device, there's a light. When that light turns green, it will be your time to speak. When the light turns yellow, You will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. When it turns red, we ask that you please adhere to the guidelines to conclude your remarks. You will be given 3 minutes to testify. Mr. Decker, please call the first name.
Senator Larry Farnese. Commenting on 160-183.
Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. How do I turn this on here? Oh, thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome,
I guess
sir.
I'm not used to this. We have a different setup in Harrisburg. I guess I'll
I know.
try to figure it out, I promise.
Serious difference in Harrisburg.
There are a lot of serious differences, Mr. President, in Harrisburg. One is, the place is only a few blocks down the street from me, so we're about 76. Well, thank you again for having me, and thank you to my very good friend, Councilman Squilla, for introducing this resolution in support of my bill, Senate Bill 95. And thank you to the rest of the council chamber for your consideration and for having me here today. For those of you who are unaware, my bill, Senate Bill 95, is known as anti-SLAPP legislation, and it provides immunity from civil claims based on protected communications. A SLAPP is a strategic lawsuit against public participation, brought against an individual or an organization solely to have a chilling effect on debate of public interest. As the resolution indicates, I was inspired to introduce this legislation after the Old City Civic Association was forced to shut its doors due to an inability to obtain insurance because of several SLAPP lawsuits. When I began this journey, Mr. President, I had no idea that the scope of this issue would be so broad. However, during a Senate hearing in April of 2014, I quickly realized that Old City Association was not alone. At the hearing and in the following weeks, I heard from individuals and organizations across the Commonwealth who had been the victims of SLAPPs. Some have been fighting these lawsuits for years, racking up millions of dollars in legal fees. Each of them spoke of the insurmountable emotional, mental, and financial hardships they faced as a result of these SLAPP lawsuits. My bill gives these individuals and organizations the incentive and the tools to fight back and continue their good work. And let me just be very clear. When we heard from folks all across Pennsylvania that came in, and from other states as well too, but the primary focus of this legislation is to come to the aid of these civic associations and community groups who need this legislation very, very, very badly. Currently, my bill, Senate Bill 95, is in the House Judiciary Committee. I have written to the chairs of the committee requesting the bill be brought up for consideration so this important free speech protection can be signed into law. I've also asked that these folks continue to reach out to their representatives and the members of the House Judiciary Committee to express their support for this important community protecting legislation. It is my hope that Senate Bill 95 will pass the House very shortly, by the end of this legislative session, and that issues of public concern can continue to flourish across the Commonwealth without fear of being silenced by frivolous litigation. Thank you again for having me here.
Thank you so much, Senator, for your testimony. It's good seeing you today.
Teresa McCormick. Commenting on 160-183.
Morning.
Good morning, council and members that are here today. With the SLAPP, also, we want to talk about also the bill that was introduced, 160177. We want clarity because, okay, we are from the Point Breeze area. campaign. Members did not. It was alleged that we made racist remarks. We did not. We stand by and let a market rate developer fabricate and lie about us that day. We are asking for affordable housing. This meeting was and had 15 developers who wanted to build market rate housing. The community asked that the developers give back and have affordable housing. The meeting became, the members in the meeting were upset because the developer told us no and he didn't want to hear what we had to say. In your packet, you will see it was said that in other areas of the world, they're going through the same things that we are. It's not, gentrification is not just in Philadelphia, it's going across the world. We are showing you, council, that when, in terms of new development that is taking place in our communities, that certain developers and also are making racist comments, which is making the racial divide. The racial divide in our community has become, which we hate to say, has become, again, white and black. This is why we're saying that it has, one developer cannot say that we are against a certain group of people. We have always, as Christians, and most of you know me as a Christian, we do not make statements against our brothers. As last month, being Black History Month, it hurts me that as you see in your packet, that there are statements about coming to attack my black brothers and my community. I have came and have written with my lawyers to come and speak with my councilman about what is going on. On this particular night, I did not receive a phone call from my councilman like he has done in the past. He has even texted me in the past. He did not ask what happened at that meeting at all. What happened at that meeting in February was all about us wanting affordable housing. This is what it's all about here. So as you see in your packet, there we want clarity. That bill that was introduced for 160177, also about us, because we're going to continue to fight for affordable housing. It does not have anything to do with whether what we say or do. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so what we're asking here, your council.
Can you wrap up your testimony?
Sure, sir. I'm getting ready to say this.
Thank you.
So what we're saying in terms of Bill 160177 is to be squashed.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Tiffany Green. Commenting on 160183.
Good morning.
Comment on the
Yes,
anti-SLAPP legislation?
Yes, anti-SLAPP bill. We're commenting on that along with others. First of all, we're asking for a little extra time because according to the Pennsylvania,
Can't do extra
let me
time.
just say, make my statement.
Three
According to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision, public comment and testimony is about matters of concern, okay, and as well as what is on the docket. And we should be able to get up to at least 5 minutes. The councilman was able to stand up and talk about our group in long term, and we should be able to address this. First of all, like Teresa said, there was nothing, no racist remarks was made regarding against anyone at all. And it was completely twisted and fabricated, and we don't appreciate the media turning it around. We were not,
Ms. Gray, hold on a second. Ms. Gray, hold on one second.
Yes.
Councilman Heaney?
Chairman, I believe the process is to be speaking publicly on a bill or resolution that's on our final passage today. Are we doing that in this situation here?
Well, from time to time, people pretty much don't pay any attention to our rules.
But we have a lot of business to attend to in today's government, and there will be plenty of opportunity to speak publicly on bills and resolutions in their proper hearings, so thank you.
Yeah.
I would appreciate the time real quick because the councilman was given an opportunity and there's some very, we felt things that were said about our group and our personally that we felt is affecting and defaming our character. Okay, we have been out here a long time. We've come down here to you many times asking for your help. We have been to our councilman's office numerous times. You've seen us in the hallway and we've had community conflict. And are you going to let us speak? This is not fair to us. Let us have the opportunity to speak, okay?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Ms. Green, Ms. Green, Ms. Green.
We think that bill is good because of the fact it protects organizations from being attacked and having.
Ms. Green, the bill is not on the final passage calendar today. So you will have an opportunity when it's on the final passage calendar. Mrs. Green, now I've been lenient. We're not going to have a debate. Right? Matt, cut this. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be lenient with you, but I'm not going to have this debate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Mr. Decker, call the next name.
Jeffrey Braff.
Well, according to the City Council of Philadelphia, you had 3 minutes, and it must be on this. Come back. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we hear testimony on the resolution number 160157, I want to say a couple of things that will not be voted on today. And I also want to clarify what has happened with respect to that resolution. I know there has been some interest with respect to the different tax rates. I believe it was erroneously reported on the radio this morning. I heard on a radio station that it was going to be moved today. That will not be moved today as a result of this resolution and the other proposal by the Business Coalition. I'm not quite clear what they call themselves. There has been substantive conversation between the various groups. There will not be action on either one of those proposals until that conversation has been concluded. So for those individuals that are here today, first, there will not be voted on today, and second, it will be continue to have substantive conversation on that particular subject matter. But you signed up, so we're going to call your name. Yeah.
The following 4 individuals are commenting on 160157. In this order: Jeffrey Braff, Matthew Fontana, Gabriella Giarcao, and Joseph Danihel.
You want to testify on this one, sir?
I want to testify on the one with the redevelopment authority, sir.
That's not this one. That's not that one.
179. Okay.
All right, sir, they had your name under 157.
Cornelia Swinson. Cornelia Swinson. Commenting on Councilman Taubenberger's resolution honoring Harriet Tubman.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Council President and Council members. I'm Cornelia Swenson. I'm Executive Director of the Johnson House Historic Site. I'd like to thank Councilman Taubenberger and Councilwoman Cindy Bass for this resolution. Located in the heart of Germantown at the corner of Germantown Avenue and Washington Lane is Johnson House. It's a 240-year-old farmhouse whose history of anti-slavery activity and Underground Railroad station puts it right at the center of the struggle for freedom in America. As a Center for Civil and Social Advocacy, the Johnson House is about history and more. We also are a place to be used to engage, facilitate conversations, and build advocacy to address contemporary issues that negatively impact the community and empower others to resolve issues today based on our history of blacks and whites, free and not free, enslaved Africans working together. Germantown Quakers penned the first written protest against slavery in 1688. The Underground Railroad was the most dramatic and some would argue the most effective form of radical protest against a system to enslave Africans for economic profit and the successive federal fugitive slave laws to maintain slavery. For hundreds of years, slavery defined the relationship between blacks and whites in what is now the United States. Running away was probably the most common and most overt form of resistance to American servitude. And early American newspapers, letters, court proceedings, and other documents recorded instances of runaways, both of servants and of slaves. Flight was a strategy for many slaves long before abolition activity and the anti-slavery movement helped in its operations. The impulse for self-liberation outran the impulse for social justice. Although anti-slavery advocates, including most Quakers, rejected participation or even sanction of the Underground Railroad, some radical abolitionists believed that helping bondsmen to escape would dramatize the slaves' drive for freedom and help to cripple the slave-based Southern economy. The Johnsons were abolitionists, and they were very actively involved in this struggle. The legacy of this painful history of slavery, particularly for African Americans, has stayed with us. It burdens our ability to safely manage life in many ways. And the negative impact of that legacy on America today is anger, violence, separation, trauma, oppression, and institutional racism. We must continue to work through the painful history of inherited by slavery. And we are very fortunate to have had Harriet Tubman work with the Johnsons in that fight against the slavery and the struggle for freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Yuval Yarden. Commenting on Councilman Taubenberger's resolution honoring Harriet Tubman. Now, commenting on Councilman Dom's Amplify Philly resolution.
Councilman Dom and staff, and thank you for having me here today, and City Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Yuval, and I'm the Program Director for Philly Startup Leaders. It's a nonprofit organization created to support founders in building their startups in Philadelphia, and therefore growing the startup ecosystem here in our city. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the South by Southwest initiative. We believe that Philadelphia deserves to be recognized as a tech and innovation hub on a national level. We here know that we're equipped to support this startup growth, but we need to work on amplifying that message on a national level, on a broader level. So as young people, Dave Silver, who's been working on this with me, we're both 24, we graduated from Temple. We see this amazing opportunity for people to build and grow their careers and businesses in Philadelphia, and we want to figure out a way to tell everyone that so that we're not just, stumbled upon, but that we're advertised as a place where this can happen. When they leave New York, San Francisco, Boston, because they're exhausted by it, they can come to Philly, where you can have a high quality of life, lots of resources, and a connected community that can support you. And we're here to support you, City Council, in developing our city's economy. Investing in a technology job will is a job creation accelerator, essentially. So every high-tech job that's created creates 5 more jobs for it. And those jobs aren't only in technology. It could be, anywhere from like dentists and doctors and trash collectors and teachers and everything. So it's not just more high-tech jobs. So we've gone through interviews, focus groups, surveys, and to better understand how we can amplify this message that Philadelphia can be nationally known as a tech hub. And we've decided to head down to Austin, Texas tomorrow for South by Southwest, one of the most influential technology and innovation conferences in the world. Cities like DC, Las Vegas, Chicago have been there for years and we haven't, so how can we expect people to think that we're at their level of opportunity in terms of innovation and technology? So we're going down to be alongside those cities. We've created a true public-private partnership and launched it through a grassroots initiative. Like I said, Dave and I just graduated from Temple University, and we've gotten our colleagues and our friends to join, but people like Comcast and Independence Blue Cross have been able to sponsor us, as well as venture capitalists and founders. So it's a grassroots initiative led by 2 young people who see this opportunity in Philadelphia. We're lucky to have amazing support from the City of Philadelphia through the Department of Commerce, as well as a coalition of 30 stakeholders and over 100 Philadelphians that will be coming down with us to Austin starting tomorrow. Some of them are already there. PSL looks forward to working with City Council and the administration in the future on continuing this work to become nationally known as a tech and innovation hub. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Carol Green. Commenting on 160018.
Morning.
Good morning. As usual, I need you to pray for me. I don't want them to tear the churches down. On 19th and Catherine Street, on 20th and Fitzwater Street, and 19th and Fitzwater Street, 3 churches were torn down, and also I'm sorry, but I didn't want them to tear the churches down, and I don't understand why they've been doing that. I need the churches because of the kind of person that I am. I go to church because I want God to cleanse me every day because I've been a sinful person in my life. And,
Ma'am,
I'm sorry.
The resolution you referenced on your testimony is the smoking policy. Is that what you're testifying on today?
Smoking policy?
Yeah, it's about, the resolution you referenced is about smoking policy inside of apartments and households.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, everyone. Well, I don't agree.
It's okay. That'll be.
I'm sorry. It's my fault.
No problem.
Is it all right to continue?
Well, that's not, if you have testimony on that particular resolution, but didn't sound like you were talking about that subject matter.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It was a misunderstanding. I signed the wrong paper, I guess, but I don't like the smoking in the apartment buildings. In one particular apartment building, it smells like they smoked the marijuana, and I don't like that. But anyway, I just, I'm grateful that, I thank God for letting me speak. And, I apologize to everyone here and out there that might be looking on television if I offended you. So, God is able. Just don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Arnold Jones. Also commenting on 160018.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on this issue because it definitely will save lives, and I just want you guys to elaborate on, the entirety of this particular proposed bill. Can you give me a little bit of understanding? It's smoking marijuana, smoking cigarettes. Where can we get more information on it?
Okay.
Well, the reason I ask is because, like the lady just said a minute ago, that is a major issue, and I think it would help better the quality of life for the residents in the event that there are specific stipulations about what things can't be used as far as smoking devices, and you should also incorporate the e-cigarettes as well. So, I'll just do a little bit more research, but I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Joseph Danahill. Commenting on the Redevelopment Authority resolution on the calendar 160179.
Okay, I'm here again about the redevelopment authority.
Sir, is
Yes.
Mr. Decker.
At this time, I am without my home at 1038 West Wyoming due to the egregious actions and inactions of this legislative body. I quote George Mason, delegate to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Can anyone be above the law? YouTube, another thing. James Dupre, my story is a tragic one, but it's not alone. It is about the principle that our government would act so egregiously on taxpayers. You, agents and agencies, are bound by oath of office to support, obey, and defend the Constitution and laws. Like in Flint, Michigan, the government stalls while the people suffer. Council passes paperwork regarding national issues for which they have no jurisdiction, while ignoring this issue. Council recently passed a resolution about Flint, Michigan. Do I, a taxpayer in Philadelphia, have to go to Flint, Michigan to get them to pass a resolution that the city of Philadelphia solves my problem? As of today, I have had very little response from council, the mayor's office. Very little response from council. The mayor's office will not address any of my issues, saying it is council's problem. For the city has up to $100 million to give to a contractor to build a mall on my not paid for home. I find this unacceptable. Who supervises the redevelopment authority? Who appoints the board members? Why doesn't council investigate? Why does council continue to fund and use the redevelopment authority? Why doesn't the DA investigate? In my opinion, the city is taking the Catholic Church pedophile priest method of denial while not dealing with this issue. Council and the mayor's office show no concern to solve this and seem to want to spend lots of money to litigate instead. Council, the mayor's office, RDA, and their attorneys have opposed the Seventh Amendment, common law, jury trial in my situation. These article and previous submissions require immediate funding and investigation of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority before more laws, as in the above and previously mentioned, are violated by you, the agents and agencies of the government, and now duly notified since December 3rd of last year. You are in this member of the people's opinion. Accessories after the fact. See 42 U.S.C. 1985, 1986. You have taken an oath to support, obey, and defend the Constitution and law. Now let's get to work and solve this problem.
Thank you.
There are no other speakers in the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. We will now move to our calendar. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 160179.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the 45th and Sampson urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 46 South 44th Street.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160179 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160181.
A resolution also naming the 1900 and 2000 blocks of South Cecil Street, Marcia Moore Way, to honor the memory of Marcia Moore and to recognize her life and memorialize her lasting legacy.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160-181 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160-183.
A resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly to consider Senate Bill 95, introduced by Senator Larry Farnese, on March 31, 2015, regarding anti-SLAPP strategic lawsuit against public participation legislation.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and Resolution 160-183 is adopted. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution authorizing the Committee on the Environment to conduct public hearings to investigate the relationship between poor indoor environmental quality and high incidences of childhood asthma, introduced by Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution calling for the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings on improvements to the Philadelphia Police Department video surveillance systems and programs and other crime prevention tools such as the Shot Spotter gunfire detection system, introduced by Councilman Jones on behalf of Council President Clark.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring the Philadelphia Gas Works on the occasion of its 180th anniversary, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development to hold hearings regarding the Abandoned and Blighted Property Conservatorship Act of Pennsylvania, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on the Environment to hold hearings to examine the Solar Schools for Philadelphia report released by Penn Environment Research and Policy Center and Frontier Group, and to investigate financing options for the School District of Philadelphia to use its land and building stock for solar energy generation, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution acknowledging and recognizing Startup PHL Presents Amplify Philly SXSW Edition, a partnership of 30 public and private organizations that have joined together to highlight Philadelphia's startup and tech community and promote Philadelphia as a hub for startups at the South by Southwest Conference and Festival taking place March 11th through March 20th in Austin, Texas, introduced by Councilman Dom.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I'd like to speak to this resolution.
Please do.
First, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to acknowledge and commend all those involved in this effort that has resulted in a worthy initiative. The Startup Philadelphia Presents Amplify Philly South by Southwest Edition. As a result of cooperation and coordinated efforts of the community, city government, and the private sector, Philadelphia and its startup entrepreneurial and tech community will present and showcase a unified Philadelphia for the first time at the South by Southwest Conference and Festival, which is one of the most influential technology conferences in the world. Although in recent years the focus on supporting startups in the city has increased significantly, with corporations such as Comcast and Independence Blue Cross investing in innovation, we need to continue to build on this momentum. The economic multiplier, as you heard earlier, for tech jobs is 5 to 1, meaning for every new high-tech job, there are 5 other jobs created. Mostly surprisingly, though, this, 2 of the 5 jobs are professional jobs, such as physicians or attorneys, while the other 3 jobs created are occupations like waiters, retail clerks, cooks, and by the way, one of my first jobs was a dishwasher at Howard Johnson's. To put this in perspective, though, between 2009 and 2013, New York City has seen an explosive growth, 33 times that what we've seen in Philadelphia. By the way, 16 years ago in New York City, they had 0 jobs in tech. Today, they have 543,000. We have 14,000. This is our future, building tech. But it gets better. The tech industry offers employment opportunities for workers with different levels of education, not just those with technical backgrounds. A report commissioned by the Association for a Better New York City, Google, and New York Tech Meetup found that 60% of the jobs at tech firms did not require a bachelor's degree. All that being said, this is a great opportunity for us to showcase our local Philadelphia area, and I want to again commend all those involved in this wonderful initiative and wish them lots of success in Austin and continue to make Philadelphia proud. On one final note, the City of Philadelphia has relaunched StartupPhiladelphia.com, a site designed to serve as the online gateway to tech in Philadelphia. With that said, Mr. President, I make a motion for the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring March 10th as Harriet Tubman Day in the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilman Taubenberger.
Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Thank you, Councilman President. I would like to speak on the resolution for just
Please
a
do,
moment.
sir.
Thank you so much. The genesis of this resolution really came from a very dear friend, a former member of this body, Councilman Thatcher Longstreth, who is so honored and so impressed by his great-grandmother, Anne Longstreth, who has actually very much worked on the Underground Railroad, and in many cases with Harriet Tubman, who had told me this story. So I thought it was very apropos to introduce this resolution on the date of her passing 103 years later. And I cannot thank Councilwoman Bass as well for helping me introduce this as well as being a co-sponsor, and all members of council who have signed on as signatories. And at this point, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Council's Committee on Commerce and Economic Development to investigate and hold hearings to determine whether the City of Philadelphia should develop a local mentor-protege program to enhance the capacity of minority, women, or disabled-owned enterprises to compete for procurement opportunities in the Philadelphia metropolitan marketplace, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring the Philadelphia Clef Club of Jazz and Performing Arts for serving and representing Philadelphia as a legendary institution of jazz performance and education on the occasion of its 50th anniversary, introduced by Councilman O.
Chair recognizes Councilman O. Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our calendar for today. Are there any speeches on the part of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick remarks, one of congratulatory and the other is for us to think about. As the father of a Pennsylvania state trooper, hearing the news of so many injuries and even deaths of police officers in the last couple weeks, I would just urge my colleagues to think of the fine work men and women are doing across this nation to protect our laws, our property, and our way of life. And I would urge that. The second is more of a congratulatory situation because I like sports, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Roman Catholic High School basketball team on their District 12 Catholic League Championship on February the 26th. And also I'd like to let everyone know that they are currently playing in the state tournament. They won their first game, and their second game was last night, and they also won that. We at City Council want to cheer them as they go on their way to the quarterfinals of the state championship, and their game is this coming Saturday, March 12th. Go KLAs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. On behalf of the majority, the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the weather breaks from winter to spring, over the last 48 hours, all hell broke loose in our communities. We experienced a number of shootings and also murders in batches. What troubles me most about it is that the almost sense of normalcy that sometimes we experience in these besieged communities. It's like growing up or having to live in Fallujah or some other battleground where people get battle hardened and used to the fatalities. We should never, ever get used to that. We are working to do some things about it. Here in council, you have empowered a committee to look at the justice system to see about how we can make long-term change on this process, which I appreciate you taking the foresight to do. My colleague, Councilman Johnson, put about 50 pastors and faith-based ministers from 70 ministers and clergymen from Islamic culture and others in the room to talk about long-term solutions. We are doing something about it with the committee hearing that's coming up on to look at illegal trafficking of guns and things that come into our city. But I want to urge my colleagues in this chamber to take advantage of one other tool, and that is the power of the budget. There will be dozens of departments that come before us over the next month or two, and we should look and challenge each and every one of them to see how they can be a part of the solution to moving this away. You challenge the streets department to hire returning citizens and to employ them, because some of the best deterrent of future violence is a working citizen that's too tired to go out and do the foolishness. We need to look at the rec department and say, what happened to the after-school, after-hour programs that they used to put together that can give a person something to do to occupy a mind and a restless spirit. We need to look at your idea of community schools. One of my young pups last night at a community meeting talked about 2 book bags. The one they carry with the lessons of the day, but the other one with the troubles from home. We need to use the power of the budget to take a look at why in the city of Philadelphia our babies are killing each other. They're just straight genocidal killing each other. And if all lives matter, if black lives